Well, welcome back, everybody, to another episode
Hello.
of Wow Words Polite as Fuck.
The dogs are in
I know the
town.
dogs are really, they want to come in. You want to be here? Come here. Animals.
Anyway,
Anyway,
happy Sunday. No.
yeah.
We're not going to say days anymore.
Happy not a day.
Happy rainy day. It's a rainy day
It
here.
is. It is very rainy. No
And
work,
cozy.
relaxing, chilling.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I feel like recently we've been in a bit of a funk.
Yeah,
It's just
I
maybe it is
have
the
been.
weather. And I feel like this time of year
Honestly, I feel like it was like prepping for the breakup episode put me in a weird mood.
took a lot.
Yeah. And then I feel like the stuff we were watching like put me in a weird mood, like this Wednesday,
Yeah.
and then this what is this show?
Eight, no,
1988
1899, I think, or
1890.
19. Anyway,
This like ship show. The dreams that I had last night were insane.
yeah.
I was in the show.
Oh my God.
I was on the ship.
Well, we just want to start a little bit on a positive note with some recommendations or just some like things that we've been listening to, watching,
Yeah.
whatever. So SZA's new album came out. What's your favorite song?
Oh, that also is a reason for my funk because it's so.
I told you, I was like, I really like it, but it's
woo.
like, I was listening to it and I'm like, oh, damn. Like, this is a lot
Yeah.
of breakup-ness.
I've been seeing a lot of people. I don't know if it's just the algorithm or if I like a lot of people relate to it, but a lot of people seems like they went through breakups this year and can resonate with the songs. I think my favorite one, it's a little bit crazy, but I really like Kill Bill.
Same as my favorite.
And then the one where she's rapping for like a second, it's like smoking on my X pack or something.
Oh, I don't know. I'm like hyping it up and I haven't even listened to all of it.
It's good. The only one, do you do you add songs to your liked or do you add it to a playlist or
Oh, we're listening to actually this whole episode is actually just listening to her album. No. I honestly I told you this before, like my music and the way that I is so dumb. Like I am like amateur to the amateur of like liking and adding stuff. I like
Mm,
look back on my playlists and I'm not the best. I don't
yeah.
like songs. I want to be organized, so I try to add them to a playlist. Like if I like it and it fits with a certain playlist, I'll
Mhm.
add it to that. But yeah, I'm horrible. Why do you like your songs and go to your liked
Well,
on
no, that's the
Spotify?
thing. The only song that I liked is the Low. It's called Low on her album.
This day is already so fucking annoying. Anyway, SZA's album, fantastic. Definitely recommend you guys listening to it. We finished watching Wednesday. Loved
Yeah,
it.
that
I
was
loved it. I
so
think
good.
everybody loves it because it's been like all everybody has been talking about. But it's so good. She's great, Jenna.
What's
I
her name?
love
Jenna?
Jenna. Yeah, Jenna Ortega. I think.
Mm.
I think that's her last name. And then the fact that they had the OG Wednesday, like the Wednesday I grew up in, as in the Wednesday show on Netflix was so cool.
Mhm.
Yeah. Do you have any?
I feel like there was another aside from the ship show that we're still
We're still
watching.
going through. We have 2 more episodes, so as soon as we're done, we'll see if we recommend it to you guys or not.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I'm started reading Dark Matter, that book for book club.
Yeah.
That one's pretty good so far.
Oh, I do have one recommendation. I for all of my folks out there who kind of struggle with body connection and body positivity, even like on good days, bad days, whatever. But I listened to an episode. It's a podcast called What We Said. You showed me them, which I
Mhm.
love them. And it's called Feminine Energy and How to Be Confident.
Mm.
And I really, 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 really liked it. It was very quick, easy to listen to, but they just hit some really good points of just being confident in yourself. And then I really did like how they kind of went into this like feminine energy versus masculine energy,
Mhm.
and then when your feminine energy is broken, what it looks like, and then what masculine energy looks like. So folks out there that are in a relationship, I think this was really interesting to listen to too, because it correlates to like, oh man, if like my man is feeling some type of way, what does that mean? And it was just a really all around great podcast episode that I've listened to that I
Mhm.
wanted to share with you guys. So I
Yeah.
think that kind of sums up my
Rex.
Rex.
Yeah, we're doing a rec segment.
Yeah.
But the topic for today also kind of came from a rec and from our own just conversations. Ellie and I sometimes just have breakdowns. and we
Sometimes, all the time. What?
and we start talking, and then we're like, this is probably something we should talk about on the podcast because I'm sure other people can relate as well. But the recommendation was this podcast, The Happiness Lab, and it was from our friend Becca. It's called YOLO, You Only Live Once, So Commit. And it was a really good episode. You didn't have a chance to
I
listen to it
didn't. Yeah,
yet,
I didn't have a chance to listen to it.
but it was just talking about how, like, and I think everyone knows the negatives of social media.
Hmm.
But it was just talking about how, like, we live in this day and age when there's so many options all the time and so many distractions, but also just like this grass is always greener, or like if something's like an inconvenience, or if I don't like it, like I can change
Hmm.
it, which is like, yes, but it also, I feel like, allows us to never really fully be fulfilled because we never go through like the difficult parts and patches of different things because we can so quickly opt out of it. And it gave an example in the episode of like when you're watching Netflix, or like you get on to find a show and you spend like 30 minutes looking for a show because you just have like infinite
Right. And then
possibilities.
by that time, it's like, oh, well, that's my watching.
Yeah,
That's
then
what
you're
it
like
is.
drained. You're
Yeah.
like, I don't really care about watching anything anymore. I'm going to go to bed.
Yeah.
And just like sometimes it's not as good to have so many possibilities, so many options all the time.
Hmm.
And the other half of that came from our conversation around like
We had a deep moment a few nights ago.
around like followers and likes. And I feel like I wasn't as hyper aware of it as I am now with the podcast. And not that we're like a massive podcast yet by any means.
Manifesting.
But just like when you lose followers or something, starting to take like personal, I don't know if offense is the right word, but
I would
just like
like it
taking it
is. Yeah,
personally
taking it personally.
and feeling like I did something wrong, or like they don't
Like me.
like me.
Yeah. It's a lot. It's a lot to
Yeah.
navigate, especially in this time of the world. And so that's kind of what led us to have this conversation around social media and validation
Mhm.
and a big word, fulfillment,
Yeah.
because it's something that we struggle with all the time.
Yeah.
And so just opening it up to have that conversation. So kind of just wanted to start again, like we said, it's very known that there's negative impacts around social media, but I think it's important to bring up, and you found some really interesting things to share
Yeah.
just to start us off, just around like social media as a whole, like our
Mhm.
whole culture, etc.
Yeah. I mean, really the biggest one that I found was just around like the amount of time that people spend on social media. And this was from the Common Sense Consensus. They did a study in 2019. So this is already like almost 3 years old. Three, almost 4 years old. Math.
Math.
Wow. But it was saying teens, so 13 to 18 is the range, spend 9 hours a day on social media. 9 hours. That's like a full
Day.
time job.
Yeah.
And I get the notification from my phone of like my weekly time report and
Hmm.
like on average how much time I spend just on my phone in general. And it's been around 4 or 5 hours, which is like the worst it's ever been, which is why I feel like I want to have this episode because I'm like, this is not good.
Yeah.
But that's like on music, on like maps, on other things too, and social media. So the fact that it's 9 hours a day just on social media is like I can't even comprehend.
Yeah.
No, no, like judgment. I think Ellie and I were talking about being a teenager now compared to like even 10 years ago
Yeah.
when we were in that age range. Like the heat of that is so different, night and day.
Yeah. And I think what you brought up too is like this social media era, that's what I'm calling it, deciding to call it that right now. Anyway, um really started during our lifetime and
Mhm.
really like our, I wouldn't even say childhood, I would just say like adolescence, youth,
Mhm.
teen is when it really started. So one, you had brought up the point of like this is also new,
Mhm.
and you had said two is like the fact that the research around social media, yes, is great, love it, but there has not been somebody that's had this social, like a lifetime of social media and what it looks like of like your lifespan. And
Mhm.
that's like so crazy to me to think about. But then going back to is I had said I am so thankful that I did not have this amount of social media when I was a kid, because I would have just embarrassed myself.
Mhm.
And I don't need all of that on the internet. It would have been like all of these things that we talk about, like bullying and posting, and nothing like is deleted, it's there forever. Like adding that onto your additional growing pains would
Mhm.
have just been too much. And so the fact that like kids have to deal with that now is insane. And I don't
Mhm.
think, like their brains just don't comprehend that, and they're able to share their thoughts to everyone is ridiculous,
Mhm.
and just adds a whole new sense of like stress and research that is going to be coming. But I mean, it's like so fast paced, there's so much research coming out because it's so new. But
Yeah.
it's really like this idea, this social media era has changed our entire human race,
Mhm.
and it's just like really wild to think about.
Yeah. As you were saying that, I was thinking about even looking back on like my Facebook and like old Instagram posts. I've like deleted some stuff, which is like, yeah, it's not really gone, but like so embarrassing and so ignorant, like things that I said and did that I'm just like, you fool. Why would you do that? But I think it was because at that time, there was no awareness of like the extent of how far that could get.
Oh yeah.
I was very much like in my bubble of a small town Nevada, those are the people who are seeing it.
Hmm.
And I didn't think as much about like what am I posting? It was just like, "Oh, this is funny, I'm posting it." Or
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I like this, I'm posting it." And I compare that to my siblings who are in this like age range now, the 13 to 18 age range, and thinking or watching them really think about, am I going to post this? Like really deliberating on like, what does this mean? Is this the best picture? What should like so much time being put into it that I didn't. So it's like there's those trade-offs because there's more awareness of like this is on the internet forever.
Hmm.
There's more people that are going to see this than just in your hometown,
Yeah.
but also how crazy that is to think about, like, your life anything you put on there about your life is open to the world
Yeah.
and open to, like, whatever anyone wants to say.
Yeah. And that's why I feel like it's really changed the human race, because it's added a whole new level of development, and navigating such an already hard time. And then also, like, for parents nowadays, like thinking of our parents and like our siblings being so much younger than we, not so much, but like we do have younger siblings, is like
Yeah.
the way that a parent, like we were parented versus the way that our kids, our siblings are parented. Like
Mhm.
everything is now shifted and everything is changed, and it's at a whole new level of everything, and everybody's just trying to navigate it. And I think like that's what we want to talk about today is social media as an adult and
Mhm.
what it looks like now that we have this added level of I mean, it is good, and we'll talk about that. But it's just, it's just another level, another thing that we have to navigate. And so the best thing is to do it together. Let's chat, guys.
When we were talking about, like, like, what we wanted this episode to be called and what we wanted it to be, like, kinda the center point around was around fulfillment.
Hmm.
And I feel like when you are in high school, when you're a kid, there's definitely I'm not like saying that you don't have hard times and hard days and things,
Hmm.
but it's very much like structured. You have things planned for you. You go to school, you have your social activities, you have all of these ways to build connection
Hmm.
and community. And so when you become an adult, I mean, this is one thing that I struggled with is like making friends as an adult.
Yeah.
Like all of these things that okay, that structure is gone. You're not in you're not going to school anymore, you're not going to these after school activities, you're not going to these, like, planned outings as much, and so I feel like that fulfillment piece is really hard, which is why it makes it harder navigating social media and finding fulfillment as an adult.
Yeah.
So I think that's kind of where this goes
Is
into.
segueing. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
absolutely. So that's kind of where we got the idea of talking about this. So jumping right into our challenges in social media. And I
Mhm.
think the first one I want to bring up is FOMO. This idea
Mhm.
of fear of missing out and what that looks like to us personally.
Mhm.
For me, I would like to say like my main social media thing that I use is Instagram. I'm not a
Mhm.
big Facebook person. I don't like Snapchat and I don't have a TikTok. And so Instagram for me, like fear of missing out is this idea of like, I want to be traveling or going and doing these fun things. And so when I see a group of people that I hang out with, or even sometimes it's just like an activity that's going on in so like or in say in San Diego, like a concert or something, and I don't know anybody there. None of my friends are there, but I see that it's being posted about it. I get this like anxious feeling of like, fuck, I'm not doing what like I'm not doing the cool thing. And so that's where I have this like fear of missing out. And I mean, it just can spiral so quick. And then you start to
Mhm.
think about all these things that you should be doing, blah, blah, blah. And it just goes down and down and down. But I think for me, it's just like so hard to see others do things that I want to do. Also, don't know if you can hear this. Like, let's just wait. Are you done? Like, um, yeah. So I think FOMO is such a real thing, and
Mhm.
so s- sometimes like when you try to like share that feeling with others, it sounds so silly when you say it out loud, but it is such a real, raw feeling of feeling like you're missing out on all of these things, and then it leads you to think like, am I missing out on life? That's where I think, and like talking
Mm.
before about how like I really want to travel again and how I felt like Australia was the only thing that cool thing that I did. So when I see other people traveling, I'm like, fuck, see, what's the word, like it solidifies the negative thoughts that are already running in my mind
Mm. Yeah.
around doing things.
Mhm. The way you phrased it of, like I don't actually remember what you just said, but something about, like
It's
something
okay.
about, like, life, like, you're not doing enough with your life or something? Is that
Yeah,
what you said?
yeah, something like that, I forget too.
Because when I think about FOMO, my instant thought is like, "Oh, a group is hanging out and they post about it and I'm not with that group."
Mhm.
Which is like, I don't if a group's hanging out, I'm not like, "Okay, I" like, to me, that feeling of like, "Oh my gosh, I wish I was in that group," isn't really there as much as the piece of like, "Oh, I'm looking at my phone sitting on the couch right now while people are out doing
Mhm.
things,
Oh,
and
yeah.
I'm not out doing things, and so I should be out, I should be doing more, I should be planning something." And so I think it's more of like fear of missing out on not doing enough in life
Mhm.
and, like, fear of wasting time
Mhm.
almost. I think that's where that anxiety in me and I think we can do an episode on, like, productivity culture and just, like, that you should always be doing more, and that but that's something I struggle with of, like, knowing when to rest,
Right.
and we were kind of talking about this right now, like, we just had a summer of doing so much,
Mhm.
even, like, up until October.
Yeah.
Even last
It
weekend.
was like seriously, it was just like go, go, go. And then when you have this like respite, which your body needs, your mind needs, my dogs, like
Mhm,
everybody
yeah.
needs it, you have this like, I need to do something, I need to do something. And like
Mhm,
what you were just saying reminds me of yesterday at the beach. The first, I'm not even lying, and this may sound stupid, but whatever. The first thing I thought of is I need to take a picture, I need to post it. And then just
mm,
like thinking about it and really sitting with that feeling of why.
mhm,
And I think it goes into the fear of missing out. And what you just said is like, am I doing something? So now that I'm doing something, I feel like I need to share that with people so
mhm.
that they see that I'm this like, oh, I'm at the beach. Like I do things, you know what I
San
mean?
Diego
Like San
living.
Diego, I like do these things and like, it's just so, and it's hard because like,
Yeah.
that's such a real feeling that I think people go through. And some people, I remember not too long ago, I would say primarily in college, I would like laugh at people for like wanting to take pictures and do, because I'm like, why? And I'm like, I do it too. Like the
Mhm.
fuck? Everybody does it. It's such
Mhm.
a, everybody feels that way.
Yeah.
And but why is that the first thing I think of when I go to actually do something? Like that's not why I'm there. That's not why we went there. It wasn't to
Mhm.
go, I'm not like a famous influencer. So why is it that I need to share what I'm doing? But I feel so like I need to do this. I need to share it.
Mhm. I think it stems from that it stems from a good place, I do think, of, like, I'm, like, having a good time, I'm
Hmm.
having a good moment, like, this is bringing me happiness, I wanna share it,
Hmm.
but I think there is that underlying of, like, feeling validated, making sure people know that I am having a good time, that I am doing cool things, and, like,
Yeah.
so, yeah, the pros and cons of that.
Yeah. And then the next challenge of social media, which I think, again, I feel like everybody can relate to that. So I'm going to stop saying that, but is self image and body dysmorphia into like body positivity, blah, blah, blah. Just this whole self image thing.
Mhm,
And I wanted to kind of circle back to something that I had mentioned last episode, which was when I was broken up with. The first thing that not the first thing, but what I really kind of turned to was like working out, and like this
mhm,
idea of like maybe if I change my body I'll be like more attractive and people will want me more, and it'll be like this like, oh, I bet you regret breaking up with me, look at me now kind of thing.
mhm,
So I used again, like my whole platform that I use is Instagram. So I used Instagram to find workouts, but I also used Instagram to find what it is I wanted to look like. And the reason why I want to touch this is because algorithm, and I think that's such an important thing to talk about when you're talking about social media, especially the challenges, can be a benefit too. But for me, my algorithm changed and my self image got so much worse because all I was looking at is what I want to look like, what I want to look like. And that's all Instagram was giving me is like, this is the workout you need to do. And it was like, all I was looking at is like specifically lifting. So I was
mhm,
like, I would see these like beautiful, gorgeous, lean, skinny women that I felt like I needed to look like and how much they were lifting, and it was just like that was all I was being fed. And
mhm,
so that's when the algorithm was very, very hard for me at the time because my self image, I just felt so like this is what I need to look like. And I need to be like top all the time because look at all of these other women. They're like doing all of these cool, incredible things with their body. Like, I need to do that. I need to do that. So for me, like, that's where the self image was so like such a challenge because of social media at that time, and it was just it's just like so hard, you know?
mhm. No, it is, I think there is a huge movement around, like, body positivity, and there's this big push around, like, posting unedited or what's the word? Unfiltered pictures
Hmm.
and things like that, but I still feel like even if the intent of some of these workout channels is, like, to inspire and to motivate, it's hard. I had to unfollow accounts.
Hmm.
I did that a few years ago because it was like I followed all of these workout accounts in college to get, like, workout inspiration,
Same.
but then I wasn't really using the workout inspiration, I was using their body as
Hmm.
a comparison and constantly, like, anytime I would get on, even if it wasn't, like, even if it was more subconscious of, like, that stream of thought, I would feel worse about myself
Hmm.
after seeing those. So
Yeah.
I, like, just these really great, beautiful, fit women, I had to follow them because it was just like, I don't feel inspired. I'm feeling more self-critical
Yeah.
than I was before and not really as motivated to do things. And I feel like I get more hard on myself around, like, skin.
Mm.
Like, I
Oh yeah.
follow a lot of, like, natural beauty or, like, Hailey Bieber, for example. I think she's gorgeous.
Hmm.
I know you have thoughts on her, but, like, I think she's beautiful, and I like her aesthetic. I can't really relate to her. I tried to listen to a podcast with her, and I'm like, there's nothing there." But I feel like she just released this skincare line, for example, and I'm like, "There is no way my skin will ever look like your skin." Because I don't think that you just do those little products that you sell. You
Yeah.
have so much money to put into your skin, but I am hyper aware of, like, my skin and the flaws on my face
Mhm.
that that is really hard when I get on social media and see these girls with just, like, even if it's more, like, natural looking makeup done, their skin looks so good.
Yeah.
They're glowing, and
Yeah.
I'm like, "Dang it."
I really want to bring back a word. I didn't even write it down, and I don't know why this didn't like it didn't even enter my brain, but comparison.
Mm,
And like that's what it is. That's the whole self-image. That's the challenge of social media because at least for me is that I compare all the time. It's been such a struggle my whole life. And just again, with this added stress of social media, it is so strong. And when I am only, again, with that algorithm, like you're looking at only beautiful skinned people or whatever, like
yeah.
that's all you're going to be fed. It's just so hard because that comparison goes straight up. And then when you look at the mirror, I constantly, I'm trying really hard to not do it now, but before I could tell that I was watching or being on social media too much because I would look in the mirror and all I would see is like why does your skin like that look like that, why does your stomach look like that, why does your thigh look like that, like
Mm,
it's just that comparison is so strong. And I think just with self-image, and I don't even think it's towards women. I think both men and women, everybody
mhm.
feels like that because on the other side, like with the it doesn't even matter. It's very just like the comparison all around. And it's just such a challenge that I think is stemming from social media. And
Mhm.
just and if not, everybody, I'm sure people compared before social media. It's just that extra added stress that goes into it.
It goes back to what, we were talking about in the beginning with that podcast of, like, infinite. You have infinite people to compare yourself to.
Yep.
You could scroll all day and find people or things or other objects that
Hmm.
are, like, even if it's not, like, you're intentionally trying to,
Hmm.
you see all of this information more than you would if you were just walking down the street and ran into 5 people or
Yeah.
whatever
Yeah.
type of thing.
And I also think that kind of goes into like with the self-image and comparison is comparing other people's it doesn't even need to be like famous people, but like comparing to like your friends and how they look on social media versus how you look on social media. And then that goes into kind of the conversation we were having a few nights ago is, well, how many likes do they have? And then you just find yourself down a rabbit hole of just dread and misery because of it,
Mm.
and it's just really bad.
Do you have the likes on, like, do you
No,
see?
I take them off
Okay, yeah, me
because of
too,
that
me too.
reason.
I love that they did that.
Same.
I'm more hypercritical of myself. Actually, not even for likes. It's more the follower piece and kind of what we were talking about of, like, taking it personally as, like, me they have something against me or, like, they don't like me. And I had a semi breakthrough moment in therapy a few days ago, which was along the lines of I care so much, not necessarily about people liking me, but about people being happy.
Mm.
And if I feel like I take it more of like I made them unhappy or I'm like a negative piece in their life
Ugh.
of them, like so that they don't want to follow me anymore and whatever I'm posting, even if it's like something that I'm so excited in it. Like this is I love the photo dumps that we have now because it's like this is a collection of like really great things that made me happy over the
Mhm.
last whatever 2 months.
Yeah.
And then when you lose followers because of that, it's like I made them unhappy.
See, I don't care about that. For me, it's not the followers. For me, it's the likes. And then I'll look to see, like, okay, this person liked this photo, but they didn't like this one. Why? Like, why? It's just a rabbit
Yeah.
hole you can find yourself going down real quick. All right. The next thing I would like to talk about is the mental health aspect. And I think it's a wide umbrella because I feel like a lot of things can fall under that. Like with FOMO, blah, blah, blah. I just think that mental health is kind of like the end. So for like what I was just saying about when I am feeding myself so much social media and I find myself comparing, and then I look in the mirror and I find myself so unhappy, that is when I feel my mental health is at the lowest. And that's when like I'm losing sleep. That's when I end up not liking myself.
Mm.
And that's when I think like again, like it just falls, like everything kind of like leads towards mental health. And I feel like if you were to circle mental health, like you could just have all these little like stemming things that go off of it. But I think it's important to talk about because there has been, and we're not going to talk about all the research because so much has been done with it, but it is very clear that social media can have a negative effect on your mental health.
Mhm.
And I think the things that I had thought of is lack of sleep and the falling out of a routine.
Mhm.
Because when I feel so low, and this is just even outside of social media, just myself in general, I know when my mental health is lacking, when my routine is like just off, like
Mhm.
everything is falling apart in the sense of routine. I mean, I'm sure everything else is falling apart too, but as far as my routine, that's when it's kind of like a warning, like my siren is kind of going off in my head, like fix your mental health, because the lack of sleep and the routine. And so just tying that into social media, when I am feeling like FOMO or the comparison or too much self-image thoughts and stuff, that leads into the mental health. And then mental like the decline of my mental health leads to lack of sleep and loss of routine.
Mhm. The way I okay. I have so many thoughts in my
I
head.
know.
We try and, like, write things down, but then you say things and it inspires
I
me, but
know.
I had to make a very conscious decision a while ago of, like, loving myself. Not that I am perfect at it, but, like, I had to be like, and we talked about this before. "Erica, you are with yourself forever. This is all you got. Let's work with it. Let's love it. Let's be accepting. Let's be caring." But that doesn't stop like those thoughts that I have to battle in my head
Hmm.
of from coming in. That's not just like, okay, yeah, I choose to love myself, so I'm always going to love myself and I'm always going to be so happy all the
Hmm.
time. It just doesn't work that way.
No.
I think the mental health piece for me is like distracting myself from dealing with those thoughts.
Mm.
Like distracting myself from distractions or from like things that are coming in. So I didn't read the stat earlier, but one thing that I found what in this 2018 study from the University of Pennsylvania was that people who self-monitor themselves on social media, whether it's, like, even having those timed out apps,
Mhm.
like, after 30 minutes it times out, even if you ignore them, like, you're already monitoring
Oh,
how
smart.
much you're on there, even if you
Yeah,
ignore it, it's like, "Wow, I'm already spending 30 minutes again, I'm gonna do it." But you're aware of, like, that time,
right.
even if you're ignoring it, and it actually reduces anxiety and FOMO not as much as if you, like, are strict and actually, like we'll talk about this later, try and set boundaries on
Mhm.
social media, but I think for me, the mental health piece comes when I just ignore the time limit for the day, spend all day scrolling, lay on the couch all day, and I don't face these quote unquote demons that I have, and I just distract myself with like videos and pictures and things. Even if they're like funny and I'm laughing, I'm still not dealing with the mental health issues that I have
Mhm.
going on.
Mhm. For sure. And I also think just like because you're scrolling and because you're not facing the demons, even if you don't have any, there are other things that your body and that your mind need that don't need to be on the screen,
Mhm.
and recognizing that. And that's so smart too about the time limit too, is I bet when it pops off, and I didn't read the article, but I bet when that you see that notification, it's like a notification when you get on your phone, like you can having a great conversation, like right now it's on do not disturb, because if it was right, my phone was right here and we're having a podcast, the video is recording, if I get a notification, my mind goes, well, like I will look at my phone.
Mhm.
So I feel it's does like the positive of that is when you're on Instagram or whatever you're on and the time limit thing comes on, even if you do click ignore, it shoots like, I just feel like, I don't even know if this is the scientific, like neuron, I don't even fucking know, but like I just feel like it notifies all of your brain to be like,
Yeah.
oh, like it just is like a recognizing. I'm not using the right words, but you know what I
Yeah.
mean.
No, you have that reminder, even if you ignore it, of like bringing yourself back to reality for a second of
Hmm.
like, hey, you've been on for 30 minutes.
Like a check in, which
Yeah.
is so nice.
Yeah.
And then I want to touch on this.
Yeah.
And at first I didn't feel like it was important, but then talking with you about it, it is so true. I didn't even think about. But another kind of challenge or negative aspect of social media. First, I saw this idea of lack of privacy. And I had said when we were talking about it before, I was like, I don't think this is relevant because, you know, with the people that we're trying to reach, I feel like adults, like we're all very aware. Because when I think of lack of privacy, I think of, you know, my sister has a kid. So when I'm taking a picture of her and I'm posting it on my Instagram, like everybody sees that. But it's also like I am fully aware of the choices that I'm making when I post. I feel like lack of privacy is more geared toward like the younger
Hmm.
kids because they may not understand like, hey, you're posting a picture of, you know, whatever. Another, like, that's kind of what I thought about. But then you had brought up a really good point that I think goes hand in hand in that with that, excuse me, is this word consent.
Hmm.
And do you want to go ahead and share your? I just thought it was so
Yeah.
like I didn't even think of it until you said it, and it's so true when it comes to social media and like consent is such a strong word in general, and then
Hmm.
tying it into social media is very important.
Yeah. What I had mentioned, and really what I do think about with these like photo dumps that are very like organic, like they're not posed. This is like in the moment I took this photo. This is so funny. 9 times out of 10, there are other people in the picture,
Mhm.
and sometimes like they're funny or they make me happy, but it's also like the not the most flattering picture of someone else. Or it's like I posted one recently of this one of my friends on my shoulders and another girl like kind of bent over shaking her butt. And it was a funny photo. We were having a great time, but like she doesn't really have a shirt on. She has like her swimsuit top on and just should I have asked her if I could post that because even though like she said how much she laughed at that picture, it's a good memory. Is it okay to post something where someone else hasn't really said that they want you to post that about them online? Because usually I feel like a few years ago, Instagram was very like self-focused. Like you post a lot of like posed photos of yourself in different situations and it's mostly pictures of you.
Mhm.
What I love that it's evolved to is like group pictures, friendships, like just more organic stuff. But sometimes, like even for myself, people have posted stories where I'm like, wow, this is literally the most unattractive photo I've ever seen of me. But it's there and people see and all their followers see it and I guess that's fine and I don't really care. I'm not going to repost that for myself, but that idea of like are people comfortable with these pictures? Should I be asking everyone like before I post if this is okay because and I did think about it on that last post, some of the pictures that were more like scantily clad people.
Love the word. I love it.
Is that okay with them? And I didn't ask. I just, like, tried to edit it or, like, not necessarily edit it, but, like, crop it in a way that it's, like, not too I don't know.
Well, what cracks me up about this story is the fact that you didn't know that it was linked to your Facebook.
Oh,
No,
yeah.
just kidding. I feel like people out there, this is kind of like a side note, but I think like us as a generation realize that like Facebook, if you have a Facebook, it's more like, you know, family
It's more
and
like
more keeping up with like your
older people.
tias in Florida. Like for me, it's like my family in Florida and stuff like that. And then like Instagram is more like who I am really or whatever. And
Yeah.
so the fact that you told me it was linked to your Facebook, it just makes me laugh. Anyway, side note, just thought it
No,
was
I got
hilarious.
on and I was like, "Oh my gosh." I can't have people seeing these pictures. And I deleted, like, all of the more, like, crazy ones, so it's
Oh
just the
god,
ones
it's
that are w
funny. Like you're
innocent little
yeah.
Erica.
But yeah, just this idea of consent and when you say that it's more of like goes back to the mental health of when you see these more organic photos and someone takes it of you and you see it and you're
Mm,
like, wow. Because when you post something, at least for me, I'm very hypercritical of the way that I look.
mhm.
And maybe that's selfish. Maybe you look at your friends, whatever. But when I'm picking a picture, I'm like, which one do I look good in? Because that's the one I want to post. So when another person's doing that, they're looking at the one that they look, even if they're not, and they're just like organic, you're out and about, you're dancing or you're somewhere and it's like a video or organic photo, which I think I do really like this idea of like photo dump and the fact that
Mhm,
that's more of like a trending thing because it is this piece of your organic life.
mhm.
Um, but like, what does that do to your mental health? Because as soon as I see that and I'm like looking not my best, I'm like, oh, again, yeah, I don't have the option to repost, but then I really do. I like this idea of like slipping, right? It just like
Mm,
I see it and I'm like, oop, I better hold on to something because I can slip into this hole really quick
mhm,
of the comparison and all of these things that are just not are so negative and really do affect my mental health, but it's such a large aspect of it, and that idea of consent. And I mean, I don't have the right answer. Like, do you ask? I don't know
mhm,
if what the right thing to do is, but I think it's an important thing to note.
mhm,
And I think again, even though we said it previously before the consent, it just all really ties in to mental health
mhm.
and just navigating the challenges of social media.
Any new app that comes out, like learning TikTok, which I feel like I'm like 50 years old when I say that, but like my siblings were on that way before I was, and I really wasn't gonna get on it until we started the podcast, and then it's like, I should get on because I think we can find an audience. Also, another reason why we had this was because we had a baby viral moment on one of our videos, and we're like, "Oh my gosh, so many people are resonating with this," and we surpassed our follower goal that we had for the end of the year, and it was, like, really cool to see that take off,
Mhm.
but then it's like, "Oh, crap." Like, now we need to, like, keep up with it.
And
Now we
that's
need to,
all I'm
like, be
thinking
on
about.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so we had posted something else and the first thing I was like, what are we at? What are we at? What are we at? And it's just that you can this idea of just like slipping. You can slip really quick when you think about these kinds of things.
Mhm. Oh, yeah.
Let's dive into benefits of social media. We don't want to be all negative here, guys. We want to tune into
Yeah.
some good things because I think there are some good things
Mhm.
that stem from social media. And the first one that I wrote down was like connectivity and connection. And I think that speaks pretty plainly, but for me it's just I've lived a lot of places. I don't have the most followers or get a lot of likes, but social media is such a tool for me to reach out to the people that I don't normally talk. I'm horrible at responding to text messages, and sometimes I'm not the greatest friend to like pick up my phone and call and see how everybody's doing. But a quick check in, like when I see like family or friends that I don't normally see like on a daily basis, post their photo dumps or what they're doing or a quick story of them, like whatever it is. Like, I love that. I feel like,
Mhm.
oh, I'm so glad you're doing well. And I guess, I do want to note that sometimes like social media isn't like a true aspect of their life, but in that moment, they were happy enough to post what they were posting. And I like that connection. I also, as when I think about connection, I also think of like, God, it's gonna age me, but I don't give a fuck. Like Facebook pages, and I'm sure there's like like different thing for what's Instagram hashtags, maybe I don't know, of groups and connecting out into the world. And so, like for example, when we were trying to find like an apartment, trying to get on like the SD whatever living in SD pages, so it's that outside connection of people that you won't normally meet, or like running groups or lifting groups or people that like dogs and saying like there's so
Mhm.
the but it's like such a wide variety of connection and positive connection with others that can be beneficial when it comes to social media.
Mhm. I think the like, to your point of living in a lot of places, like, the traveling piece, that's what I love about social media is, like, these people that I may never see again, honestly,
Hmm.
in my life, but I was lucky enough to meet them, we shared some time together, and I get to, like, keep up with them and, like, still be reminded of that time that we shared and stay connected in a way. I do want to touch on this emptiness feeling that can come, and I'm not I don't wanna turn this into a negative, but I think about when I think of connection on social media now, I think it's great. and that's what I love about it. When I think about it in the heat of my, depression, honestly, when it was, COVID and feeling alone, feeling so empty when I get on social media and, feeling like I have all of these people that I'm seeing, but no one that I can actually reach out to. What makes connection on social media good is maintaining those relationships off of social media
Mhm.
too. Like, I feel so excited when I see friends doing stuff that I, actually still talk to or still, interact with them even if it's, on social media. I actually make an effort to, message them or, say something or not just, view.
Mhm.
Like, when I'm just viewing, that's not staying connected.
Yeah.
I'm actually, engaging and talking to them. I think there's a difference there because I think people can have follow thousands of people, but you're not actually connected to any of them if you're not having conversation or making any type of effort to maintain a relationship with them.
Yeah, absolutely. Another benefit that I wanted to add was education. And I think, especially now, and I want to tie this back into what I was talking about the algorithm for like self image. For me, like, this is like the positive look. When you're negative and you're always seeing like these things that make you unhappy, it's gonna, you're gonna slip into this really bad hole. Well, the same thing can be said for the positive side of it. And for me, it's like I as like education for me, like the main thing when I think of like education, the first thing that came to my mind was like I really like to cook and finding new recipes. And
Mm,
so like I changed my algorithm to see those things that make me happy and like education, like I work with kids. And so I love seeing like what teachers are doing and how they're running their classroom or like positive validations that they give kids that I may not know. Like I'm not in school anymore.
mhm,
Like you were saying like in college or in high school, like you're learning all of these new things and as soon as you're done, unless you are actively reading things and like yeah maybe I should do that but I don't, I find like social media is such a good tool for that because and a lot of the times these educational things will have like in their comments the links or the posts or the article of what they used or recommend the book in there, and it's
mhm,
like such a good resource to use because you find like these really good things, and that's like the positive shift on it because a lot of good things can come from it, and that's where I find a lot of my like good ideas as far as like education.
mhm. No, I think it's a great source of creative inspiration for me. And I find music through social media, I find books, I find, yeah, a lot of just creative avenues when people share things that they've tried or are listening to. I save that or feel inspired to do something because they were sharing that.
Right.
And even the person that was showing you this morning, I found last night at 2 in the morning, like,
This episode was needed.
yeah. He was sharing, I think he's a therapist or something, and just, these quick videos of, different ways to think about things. I love seeing that type of content. That type of stuff makes me challenge myself to try new things. It makes me think about things differently, and, it's cool to stay connected to people that way and to learn things.
Mhm.
I had noted vulnerability equals connection, which I know we're on education, but I think those all go hand in hand. Like when someone's vulnerable, sharing things about themselves, you build a connection, but you can also learn from them and their experiences, and that's kind of what we're trying to that is what we're doing with this
Yeah, no,
podcast.
absolutely. That's such a good point. The next kind of goes into education, but for me, I we don't have cable, and I don't know anybody here who does have cable, but I don't really watch the news. And so social media is such a good, like that's a positive thing. It may not be the news is positive, but
Mm.
it's good that you have the option to and not just see like one source. You can
Mhm.
see multiple different sources of something that's going on in the news or something that's happening, and that is your news, so you're staying informed and being aware of like your culture and society of like what the important things that are going on because of social media, and that's how I learn how shit's going on.
Mhm.
I mean, obviously, I think it's important to note too, like you have to actively like make sure you're getting like for me, it's important. Like I want to make sure that the news that I'm looking at is like I don't even know the kind of like word that I'm trying to use. Like the
Accurate?
accurate. Yeah, thank you. Like you're in charge of that, or seeing like different sources if you're seeing one thing happening or whatever, like figuring out like your own different social media sources. But it's a great way to stay informed and get your news.
Mhm. Mhm. I also think about during, like, the heat of the Black Lives Matter movement and what was going on around George Floyd, and just unfortunately, this happens all the time still, but all the killings, like police brutality and stuff, coming to light through social media and people being able to, like, record and kinda put people on blast of, like, the mistreatment that they're having. Also, I was dating a person of color at the time, and, like, it's not his job to tell me about his experiences and to, like, educate me, but I was able to find different resources and news outlets,
Hmm.
and I guess this goes hand in hand with education, but just, like, during that time, I felt like there was so much out there that even though what stemmed this was very negative, I was able to stay informed and, like, really shift a lot of, unfortunately, just, like, learned behavior and learned, like, thinking processes that I had growing up because of life and where I came from and things that
Yeah.
have just made me who I am, so I feel like that, even though it was a lot, it was good
Hmm.
because that I had those available to me.
Yeah. And you just saying that made me think too of like, you also get, as far as like news and being informed, you also get like people that are experiencing that, their point of view.
Mhm,
Because like say something crazy has happened in another city or whatever, another, even another country. Yeah, you're seeing that on social media because like NPR or whatever is posting it. How
mhm,
you also get people that are like, actually, I was here, this is what happened. You're getting all of these different sources and ideas, which I think is also important because there's always not just one lens to anything ever.
mhm,
There's always a million different lenses because everybody is experiencing everything different. And so that is, I think, a positive of social media. And I'm saying it now in this informed because you are being informed of other people's opinions and views. And yeah, that could have a negative thing, but I think there's also a positive spin on it. And, important to note because like people can comment their experiences or share those with like that hashtag or however the fuck that works. But I just think it's so important too because a lot of the time like when you're looking on the news and a news is speaking of something that's going on, you're getting whatever source they're using or wherever it is, and it's like, yeah, that's important, I'm sure that's true, but I'm also like looking at like real people, like how are you experiencing it, because that's the majority of people, right? And I think
mhm.
that's, I mean, we can do a whole news thing another time, but I think it's important to note that you're also getting other people's views of it as well.
Yeah.
Next is a benefit of social media is creating a platform for yourself as well as like branding, specifically for this podcast. I know you had mentioned like it's kind of turning not negative, but it has another aspect to it, another
Mhm.
added stress Bleh. Stress. But it's a way to create a platform for yourself and grow and sell yourself. And guys, you know what I mean. No. So that's, I think it's a great benefit.
Mhm, mhm. Yeah, I feel like so many people have found great success through social media that they wouldn't have otherwise, like, you had to know someone or you had to come from money or you had to, like, anyone. It's a level playing field,
Hmm.
I feel like. If you have a phone, if you have access to the apps, like, anyone can create, which I love that. It's inspiring because there's so many people who are so creative that I love. Okay, wow, Erica.
I know the feeling. I have so many thoughts and I want to share them all.
I love the younger generation in the sense of how accepting I feel like they are. I
Mm,
do feel like we worked through a lot of the trauma for them, but I
yeah,
feel like
you're
they
welcome.
are just, like, so supportive and accepting, and it makes me stoked to see, like, not the typical looking, not the typical, like, person who would be famous or successful finding that on social media because they are funny or because they're smart or because they have other things to offer than just their appearance.
Mhm.
And I love that there's so much like support and enthusiasm for that.
I love that. 100%. I also, this kind of goes into being informed, but one thing that I added to is like civic engagement, and a lot can go into it, but just using social media as a tool, and I guess this could go into brand building, is just being a part of something or creating your own way to be engaged with like a movement,
Mm,
or I mean, it could go into so many different things, but the positive with social media is that you can reach out to so many more people and then also get their experiences from it too. So again, like everything kind of goes hand in hand, but I just thought it was important to mention.
yeah, I feel like I found like the run that I was supposed to do today through social media and like I found out about groups and I find out about volunteer and I find out about things happening around town because of social media because people are posting about it in real time and it's like this open forum of like, hey, I can be involved and be informed.
Yeah. Anyway, okay, so we've covered challenges and benefits, but the whole point, and we're real, right? You can't take the challenges and then your option B to go off the grid. It's just
Mhm.
that's not what I want to do. I don't think people that are relating to us or listening to us, that's not something they want to do. And you can't just only see the good thing of social media. That's never going to happen. There's always going to be the negatives and the positives. So where's the balance, and how do you stay fulfilled and find, at least for me it's very important, I think for us both, is like finding validation within myself while still being a part of this social media era and
Mhm.
what it looks like. And like one thing that got me is when I was like researching this, I want to be as real as possible. And that's the tips that I want to share, because sometimes like you'll Google like what's the best way to stay mentally blah blah blah, and they'll like have these like ideas or tips, which I think are important to note. Like one thing that once like somebody said was like not have your room not have your phone in your room when you sleep. Great. I would love to do that. I don't know if I can make that choice right now. So
Mm,
I think I want to kind of share more things that maybe we can do right now, and then maybe long-term goals. I mean, it's important. Yeah, stay mentally. That's a great idea, like I said, but I want to be as real as possible. So that's kind of what I want to share of like how to be fulfilled.
mhm. Yeah, finding that balance is an ongoing thing, I think, because social media is ongoing and technology is changing, and it's just something that, like, this might not even be relevant in a year
Yeah,
from now because things have changed so much, but
absolutely.
some things that I've heard from other people that I would like to try, and I have, like, deleted my apps, but obviously you can still get on the computer, but that was really helpful for me because it's like, when I'm not on the computer, then I'm not on social media, and
Hmm.
I wasn't on all the time, but, Becca, who is actually a host of Chatty Broads, RIP to that podcast, but it was really good.
Yeah, really good.
She would do I don't know if she still does this, but she would log out or delete all her apps on Sundays. So she had,
Ooh.
like, 1 day a week where it was, like, social media free, and that was just her day, and, like, she would share content or, like, videos or things that she had made when she wasn't on that day,
Hmm.
and she's an influencer and whatever, but, like, she would log off, she would delete everything on Saturday evening and not log back in until Monday morning, and that was, like, her 24-hour reset time, and I feel like that's something I would like to try. I haven't tried it because I feel like I'm like, "Oh, the weekends are when we can create content or
Hmm.
when we can engage or when we can do that," but I think that's just an excuse, and
Hmm.
I can easily plan my day to do this on other days.
Hmm.
And our other friend, another Becca in our lives, a different Becca, who's actually our friend,
Another.
um, who shared that podcast that I referenced in the beginning, but she mentioned that she logs out during work.
Oh, smart.
So, like, she has it on in the evenings or she'll get on in the evenings, but, like, during work, she's off,
Hmm.
which I easily, when I'm at work and, like, have a few minutes or, like, am just on meetings or something, I get on my phone.
Mhm.
But I feel like there's things that I could get done during the day that I wouldn't be so stressed out about at night if I did them during those few minutes at work. When
Mhm.
it's like, I'm not working right now and I have a few minutes to get something done, let
Right.
me check this off my list really quick. Because then I get into the evening when I really don't wanna be doing that stuff
Mhm.
and I'm on my phone
Yeah.
instead.
I love those. I think for me, something that's been helpful is I found it really comforting, and I think almost everybody can relate to this is scrolling before bed. Now,
Mm.
I'm not ready when I don't have an alarm clock, so I use my phone as an alarm. So I really do like sleep kind of right next to my phone. But I try, and I'm not always perfect at it, but I really try to schedule when I use social media, and like in the day not so much, but I really try like right before I'm about to go to bed not to do that. So like say we're like hanging out eating dinner, I'll be on, like I'll be scrolling, I'll be doing whatever, but as soon as I start doing like my bedtime routine of like washing my face, brushing my teeth or whatever, I really am like, okay, I had finished my social media for the day, so that when in bed my social media cup is filled, that I don't need to go. I also have replaced it with like I'm really trying to do like meditate. I suck at meditation, as if you've heard the other episodes, you know my thoughts on meditation. But it is like I need it to be guided. So I've downloaded an app that's fantastic. I think everybody should do it. It's called Insight Timer. And they have like journal prompts, yada yada, really selling it. But they have like guided meditation for like sleep. So you just put it on, it's like background noise or like the white noise that people use. So if
Mhm,
you feel like I think some people use social media before bed as like, you know, that feeling of like you're laying down and you're like scrolling, and then you start to feel your eyes, like it puts you to sleep, kind of like with the TV on and stuff. So just
mhm,
like replacing it with something else, like that
mhm,
white noise or a sleep something. So that's something that I found like really helpful. And another thing that's kind of a little different is I really try to change my own algorithm. I'm not a tech person, so I don't know exactly how it works. But for me, it's like have been really good at noticing like when I'm seeing something a lot. And
mhm.
so I really trying to change that. And by doing that, I'll even search stuff up. Sometimes I'll even like say on my phone, cooking, are you listening? Cooking. No. Um, so I just try to change my own algorithm because I know like right now, I don't think I can delete all of my apps or be away from it or only use my computer. I think, like you had just said, is like having a day without social media. I would love to try that.
Mhm,
So, the thing that I can do is change what I'm looking at. And I found that really helpful because then, yeah, I've just spent an hour, which felt like 5 minutes, on social media. But I've also gotten like two recipes that I want to do. I've also found like five really great art pieces that I want to work with my kids. I've also found like great gifts for my family or stuff like that. So just changing that algorithm has really helped me, and like that's such an easy thing that you can do right now, um that will help find that balance.
mhm. We're not saying social media is an awful thing. We're also not saying social media is the best thing. I think everyone literally living on this earth today is figuring out what it means to
Yeah.
them and how to find that balance and how to find fulfillment in your own self.
Mhm.
And I feel like being more aware of where your energy and where your time is going,
Oh yeah.
and whether you choose to continue to be on social media and ignore the time limit things on your phone, because trust me, I do that a lot. But at least like having a higher level of consciousness of like how much time and what are you viewing and is this making you happy, and reflecting on like the content that
Yeah.
you're ingesting, is that making you feel better? Should you change something? Should you unfollow someone? Like, just being more aware will help you find more fulfillment, and also making more of an effort of like, hey, if I just spent 5 minutes on Netflix looking for something to watch and I'm not finding something, I'm either gonna get off or I'm gonna click this and
The
watch
next
it.
thing. Yeah.
Because like you're wasting time, and I don't want to put that in a negative way of like you're wasting time, but there's so much more to life and there will always be something else, something better, something whatever, something different to do and to find, but, like, choose it, pick something, and see it through, and that was one big takeaway for me from some of the conversations and things that we've been having is, like, owning it
Mhm.
and just seeing it through, the good, the bad, and the ugly, and learning from it rather
Mhm.
than, like, "Okay, this is a negative, I need to delete everything," or, like, "I'm never trying that again." It's like,
Right.
"Try it."
What you just said, what I'm taking away from it is like I'm really going to try to sit. I feel like sometimes a lot of people like the emotions that I'm feeling in the moment are really hard to name. So sometimes I'll see something and I'll like feel it here, or sometimes like I'll feel it in my throat. Like it's just so you saying that, like really sitting with like, what is this giving me right now? What energy am I feeling through that is like so that's such an easy step that you can take literally right now without having to, do these crazy like deleting everything. So that was really beautifully put, my dear.
Thanks.
Welcome.
Love you.
Love you. Yeah, so
Find us on social
yeah,
media.
I was literally just gonna say the same thing. So on that note, make sure you're liking. No. It's so great. But yeah, thank you guys always for your support. And as always, please let us know what you want to hear, what you don't want to hear. Speaking of social media, we will be throwing out some polls coming up. So make sure you guys are um staying engaged
Engaging.
with that because we would really appreciate it. And also, Erica had mentioned last week, podcasts really grow from word of mouth. So if you're really liking and vibing with what we have to say, share with a friend. We really appreciate it because we have a lot of good things that we want to share with you guys.
Yeah, exciting stuff's coming soon.
Yay!
Polite as
Light
fuck.
as fuck, guys. Love ya.
Bye.
Bye.